Hello and welcome back to our channel, A Different Way. This week we've got the main bathroom almost finished. We've made a ton of progress and we have it functional. We've got our shower now, we have our new composting toilet, and we have a temporary sink. It'll be replaced later by a full-sized one. We just haven't gotten that far yet. Still got a lot of trim work and other kind of miscellaneous things to do to finish. But again, it is functional and we're indoors and we don't have to be outside in the cold weather. Today's focus, though, is going to be on our new SunMar Centrex 3000 NE composting toilet. We've had this in place for about 3 weeks now. We've been using it, trying it out, and I want to offer you a bit of a review.
Some people ask us why we would choose composting toilets. Well, there's many reasons, and we can talk about those reasons later, but here's another big reason. When you put in a septic system, you do a percolation test, and you have to see whether the water is actually going to soak into the soil. Well, up near the surface, it may soak in a little, but as we were digging the cistern, we ran into, and as we dug the house, we ran into extremely hard, solid, impermeable clay. You could fill this hole up right now with the water and we could have a swimming pool for the season, and the only thing we would lose is evaporation. Water does not go through this at all. It's very solid. It's a great basin for the pond, but as far as a septic system and putting a leach field out here, it just would not drain into the soil at all. So we would have to do some significant modifications or come up with an aeration system. And those are extremely expensive and very high maintenance. We had one at our last house, and I vowed I would never do that again. So we are in composting toilets, and we love it. Well, here we are down under the stairs in the basement. This is where we've placed the tank for the 3000 NE. This is a SunMar composting toilet, and we have several connections. This is the vent, and this vent goes all the way up to the roof and out the roof. But it was a little tricky down here because this part here is the base of the stair, and I had to actually shift one of the joists over to get that pipe through there so that it could go over the top of the actual sewer pipe. So this is where the waste comes down from the toilet and into there. And then this little 12-volt fan, I have to get a switch. We're going to hook that up so that it draws air out and keeps that compost evaporating. And then when I get to the very top of the roof, I'm going to be putting the diffuser on. This has to be 24 to 30 inches above the peak of the roof. So that pipe is going all the way up to the roof. And the tight spaces down here are all done. That's why I did it first, because it's the hardest. Upstairs is going to be a little bit easier. We've got some long straight runs and much more space to work in. So we'll go up there. Well, we've got all the pipes hooked up. This is the vent pipe, and right above that is the fan, and I actually have an on-off switch up here that allows me to turn it on and off. Now, it's supposed to run continuously because once that fan is in there, it actually blocks airflow, so it needs to be on continuously. But if I'm doing maintenance, I'll turn it off. And behind that, this is the waste pipe. So this goes into the biodrum from the toilet upstairs. So everything is hooked up. This vent goes all the way upstairs through the cathedral ceiling, out the top of the roof, and it has the diffuser on the top. And that installation went pretty much flawlessly. All right, now we're ready to activate it. Now, complete with the kit was the necessary items to activate it. One is the Compost Sure Blue. It's like wood chips or wood pulp. You also have the micro mix. This is a powder. And this is Compost Quick, and you essentially add it all into a bucket together with warm water, and you let it activate for about an hour. And then you have to scoop it into the biodrum. And I know it's kind of dark down here, but I'm just scooping scoop after scoop into the biodrum. And this will start the composting process. They said after this is in there, the toilet is ready to use. All right, all the contents of the bucket are in the biodrum. So I'm going to close this up, and it's nice and convenient because there's directions right there on the lid when you close that up. It tells you exactly what to do. But what we need to do is mix that up in there. So we're going to turn this around a few times, and then I have to line up the hole of the biodrum underneath the waste pipe. If I don't do that, nothing goes into the biodrum, it pours down the side, and that wouldn't be very nice. So let me check it again. It's been mixed up. And the hole's right there, so I just need to turn it. And now I can feel that it is right under there. So I can shut this up, and we are done.
The SunMar Centrex 3000 NE is the toilet we ordered because it's rated to be able to handle roughly 5 people using it on a full-time basis. We decided to make it our main toilet for that reason, because we do currently have 7 people living in the home. And there's a few things you'll notice that are similar to a standard toilet and a few that are different. So first of all, it does look like a standard modern toilet for the most part. We noticed it was a little bit shorter than your average toilet, but for our family with several short girls, we rather appreciate it. And even little 3-year-old Kyla is able to use the toilet as long as she has her step stool. She can do this by herself. Now, with the toilet, you'll notice there's no tank in the back. There's no water tank, and so there's no flush handle attached to that. For flushing purposes, this toilet uses a foot pedal, and the foot pedal is connected to a ball valve that simply opens and closes to flush. So it's a pretty simple design. The one thing I did notice, I wouldn't call it a downside necessarily, but because there's no tank in the back, you find yourself a lot closer to the wall. Not a big deal until it comes to decorating. The storage shelves above my head were designed to be very similar to the bathroom we had in our last house, which was a normal tank toilet. And I was able to go down lower with the shelves because they were over the tank. In this case, you're right up against the wall, so the shelves have to be higher. Just something to keep in mind. Not a big deal, but you can't put anything low since the toilet's closer to the wall. Some features I really love about the toilet. First of all, no slam lid. You push it shut and it just slowly closes, so my kids aren't banging it all the time. I also do like the fact this toilet uses water. Not all composting toilets do. It uses a very small amount of water, just enough to kind of rinse the bowl a little right at the end. This does help with cleaning purposes, so I appreciate that. But we've noticed a big downside, and we'll discuss more about that later. But the simple fact is the tank below is not able to handle the amount of fluid that goes through with regular flushing. So we're making some modifications to deal with that. But overall, I love this design. Fits right into a modern home. You could use it in an off-grid home like we are. So it's a pretty versatile toilet, and we're loving it so far.
Well, Danielle was in the nice, spacious, beautiful bathroom upstairs, and she sent me down here to the dungeon to do this video. Initially, we wanted to be able to walk into this big open space and have it on the back wall and access the front of the container. Well, it didn't work out that way because of the venting and how we had to route things in the house itself, so we turned it sideways. But it's very important to have access to this front. There's 3 critical areas. First of all, this is for daily maintenance, and we'll talk about that later. Second, you have the evaporation pan down here that you may have to clean out to prevent clogs. And third, you have the finishing drawer over here. So when you're planning, it tells you in the directions to watch your dimensions for access to the front, and this is what they're talking about. Now, this is the largest composting unit they make, but it's not the highest capacity because we have the non-electric version, and there's an electric version that has fans and heaters that increase the compost speed and has a higher capacity. This capacity is about 5 people continuous. We have 8 in our family, but one's off to college,
and the other kids are at school and sports all day, and we also have an additional composting toilet downstairs, so we shouldn't exceed the capacity of this. She talked about the water coming down, and the one drawback of that is that it has some excess water in the composting process. You don't want your compost to be too wet. So there's a screen in the bottom that allows the excess fluid to go into an evaporation pan at the base of this, which holds, I don't know how much it holds, but it looks like several gallons. However, in the directions, about 6 different times it says, you must have a drain, you must have a drain. Well, we found that to be the case. You will get effluent out the back, and it is the only thing that actually smells. If I actually open this door, you don't smell anything. But that effluent needs to be dealt with. It needs to be planned for. Now, some people said you could use it as compost tea for plants, but then it would have to be elevated because that drain is only about 2 inches off the ground. The directions give you several other methods to dispose of it. We are actually taking it through this concrete wall and taking it to a French drain. But you need to have a plan and handle that effluent. Let's get into the daily maintenance. And it is daily maintenance, but it doesn't take that much. Every day, you put 1 cup of this compost SureBlue per person. So if you're 3 people using it, it'd be 3 cups. Go into this chamber right here, and it's really easy to access. And you turn the handle 7 times, which is 1 turn of the drum. Every second day, you would do the same thing, and you would add about a teaspoon of this compost quick. But then you turn the handle 70 times because that drum needs to turn 10 times. As that drum turns, it mixes the compost. It also drains the excess liquid into the evaporation pan. Now, every 2 weeks, you're going to add just a little bit of this powder. And this is all part of the composting process. But really, it takes 30 seconds to maybe 2 minutes a day. The most time it takes is when you're cranking that handle. Speaking of cranking that handle, we also have to get that hole to line up with the waste vent every time. So what I've done is I've put actually a little smiley face and a line in there that allows me to make sure it's lined up because you can't actually see the hole up there. So you need some reference on the drum to tell you when it's lined up properly. We started using the compost blue, but we noticed that, first of all, it's kind of expensive, and we talked to the company and they said you can use wood shavings, but not sawdust, because there is a screen that allows that excess effluent to go through, but the chunks of this sawdust need to be big enough, like the flakes you would buy in a stall or from a wood planer, which is where we get them. They need to be big enough not to fall through that, or your evaporation chamber is going to get clogged up with carbon material, and you don't want that. But for now, we're using this, and the composting is going well, and there's absolutely a no odor.
Well, overall, we're really happy with the system. We're still in that learning curve as we get into the daily habit of maintaining it. But you know, it's really not that bad. Just one more task to add to our list of chores. I would say, you know, the most thrilling part is that we saved somewhere between $10,000 for a septic system and $35,000 for an aeration system. You know, our soils here would not have passed a percolation test. So our options are pretty limited. So it's really a blessing that our state does allow us to use a composting toilet.
Well, and thank you very much for watching. We love your comments. Send them in. If you have any questions, do that too. And if you haven't subscribed, join us on our journey.
And stay tuned. A few months down the road, we'll offer you a better review after we've really given this time to work.